This is the Todd Shapiro Show on Canada Talks, SiriusXM 167.
Oh, I feel like it's been a long time. I don't know. Maybe it was only last week, but one of the most knowledgeable dudes I know, and one of the most cordial. Please welcome back to the program from BovedaInc.com, Lance Lambert. Hey, Lance.
Hey, how's it going, Todd?
I'm good, dude. You got lots going on. I see lots. You're all. Wendy, you don't rest, bro. It's the summer. Take it ace.
I know, my gosh, man. When I'm off, I'm all the way off. But typically, I'm always on, and so yeah, no rest for the wicked, right?
No doubt. So are you traveling right now? Is that the deal?
I literally am. Yes, I'm sitting at Burbank Airport in the Valley of Southern California, heading to Denver for some meetings in the Mile High City. So that's where I will be this week.
Oh, and word has it in the Mile High City that's one of your legal states over there.
That is. That was the first official legal adult use state. Yeah, so that was where it all began as far as for adult use. It's pretty cool. And it's still, it has quite a bit of history with respect to that. So good stuff.
It's interesting. We deal a lot with, UFC and UFC fighters and stuff, and a company that we know, and actually I know the CEO of the company, Terry Booth. Aurora Cannabis teamed up sort of with the UFC, basically on these CBD studies and stuff, and how it affects fighters and their healing and their anxiety and stuff. What's going on with that, Lance?
Yeah, this is huge, and this is kind of hits home for me because I actually went to college with Chuck Liddell, Iceman, and remember back when UFC was just getting off the ground in the 90s. So always kind of pay close attention to what they have going on. As everyone knows, they're very forward-thinking compared to, say, the American Boxing Association or some other more historical groups in that space. But yeah, they've partnered up with Aurora. Aurora's done it again. So ACB did partner up, and they're conducting clinical trials, to your point, for the use specifically of cannabidiol, or CBD as it's most commonly known, in these athletes. So should be interesting to see. While the story came out on, I think it was CNN Business originally where it started, they do talk about this being one of the first studies, but technically it's not. We talked about several months back the NHL Alumni Association, after Canada legalized adult use, they started moving forward with a study to examine the effects of CBD on about 100 former pro hockey players. So that's one we're waiting for an update on. But I do think this is quite a pivotal move for, again, a Canadian-based company to partner with a U.S.-based organization like UFC to see just how much of a difference this makes. So we're eager to find out the outcomes.
Is there ever fear within the industry, Lance, that what if something like this, a big partnership like this, and through all their studying and the research they're going to put into sort of the healing and whether it's anti-inflammatory stuff with the CBD properties or et cetera, if they find that the results aren't what they expected, are there ever fears about that?
There really isn't. I think the only concern that some of us are a little cautious about in the industry is when you are trying to find these potential benefits of CBD with CBD alone. Because one thing that if you do talk to certain doctors and scientists, they found in studying the plant that it does help to have a minute amount of THC to help with delivery of CBD. So that's one thing I am a little concerned if they're just using straight hemp-based CBD oil and expecting these outrageous results from it. They'll have results, but they wouldn't be as substantial as if they were using a full spectrum based oil instead of what we call an isolate, which is what most people know of when they think of CBD. So we'll see. What right now they're saying that the focus is on CBD, but they are going to allow it to contain trace amounts of THC. We just don't know what that trace is at. 1%, 3%, 5%. We just don't know what that is yet. But hopefully they've gotten the memo that there does need to be some level of THC in there to be most effective.
And at what point do you feel like all leagues, this will just be a standard, and one of the ways to treat and sort of pain management within any injury is just, hey, if a player would choose the CBD option, then that would be granted?
Yeah, I think very much so. I mean, this is something, a few pro athletes, as do I, especially based on where we live. These guys are neighbors, and to hear that they're forced to utilize some sort of opioid-based solution around their pain issues is a little bit concerning because of the addiction and the issues that could come out of that. So for them to actually give CBD a chance, if it starts with UFC, if it starts with, again, 100 former hockey NHL players, that's a great start. And it opens the door up for those in NBA and NFL to actually consider alternative medicine as well compared to the typical pharmaceutical solutions.
Lance Lambert from BovedaInc.com joins us, the world leaders, the global leaders in two-way humidity control. I saw today, Lance, a little story that I guess Cuomo decriminalized marijuana. So what happened today in New York State?
Yeah, he was really because nothing says changing of the guards like the focus on cannabis in some of these states. New Jersey, we saw it. New York, we're seeing it. So, yeah, while it has been a challenge for him and the Democrats to come together on getting the legalization of adult use cannabis, the next best thing in their mind was to deregulate it, which a lot of states have done as well, right? So all of a sudden, at most, if you're caught with X amount of cannabis, it's what we would call a catch and release. So you might be fined if you're in possession for a certain amount, but obviously not having those criminal charges that could ruin someone's future, because that's something that happens all too commonly still in parts of this country where someone has, again, minute percentage, we mean, an ounce or under, so for personal consumption, and people are getting locked up, they're getting, their property seized. This obviously changes their abilities for employment to pay the bills that they're getting from being incarcerated or from being, fined. So it's this whole crazy circle that a lot of individuals in this country have gotten caught up in. So this is a great first step. And there's countries that have done this as well, that have actually deregulated, haven't legalized, but deregulated. So, again, it's that step in the right direction.
Lance, maybe for those who are wondering, and maybe even myself, what is regulating as opposed to making completely legal or decriminalizing? Sort of what is the difference?
Yeah, so when you decriminalize or deregulate, so essentially it's saying that they do respect that this is something, although for us, let's just speak specifically for U.S., it is still a Schedule 1 narcotic, which is up there again with LSD and methamphetamines and such. So it's not a Schedule 1. So what they're saying is they're essentially not recognizing that Schedule 1 at a federal level, at a state level for themselves. So they're saying, okay, we know that they're putting this in a certain schedule at a federal level, but at state, we aren't going to accept that. This is not as hard a drug as what's being depicted or what has been depicted in decades past. So we're going to deschedule it or deregulate it as such. And then, like I said, they have to establish some sort of basic framework because still they want to put away the bad guys that are illegally trafficking, obviously, pounds of cannabis because if they don't have a legal infrastructure, whether it be a medical or adult use, there is still going to be the black market, let's face it. Even in legal markets, we've talked about that several times between your home country and my home state where we still have black markets. But this is for, again, those individuals that are just looking at, possession for personal consumption. All of a sudden, they don't have to be scared to walk down the street and get stopped and frisked and subsequently detained and excessively fined for possession of that cannabis.
Lance Lambert, always concise and understanding, so much to do with the industry, the ever rapidly really changing and growing industry. The U.S. government also approved an increased production of marijuana for clinical research. So is that just another one of these sort of one step closer for this to probably becoming federally legal one day?
Yeah, it's not a huge step. I mean,
Okay.
This is another. I'd say it's another battle one, but a small battle, right? This wasn't Normandy by any means, but it is a big deal because the U.S. government has been very apprehensive about opening the floodgates on any sort of studies related to cannabis. And a lot of us in the industry, this is just speaking from opinion, feel that this does tie back to the fact that they use cannabis as an excuse to oppress minority groups and those that are financially dispositioned. So for them to open this up a little bit, it's about time. The one place that has allowed the actual production, and they're the only ones who have been approved and have a license from the federal government, is in Mississippi. It's the University of Mississippi. So they've traditionally grown cannabis. It's a long, arduous process for even other colleges, even say Stanford or UCLA, that have great cancer study programs, for them to obtain cannabis from Mississippi in order to do their own trials and testing. And then there's the lack of quality. So this is something that Dr. Sue Sisley, who is pretty well named in the industry, she's always come out about and said, you guys are providing subpar cannabis. They're using a strain that is very old. The quality is subpar, even all the way down to the level of THC. You're talking about 7% THC, which is anywhere from, a third to at best half of what the average potency is in the open markets today, even for Canada. So you have that. And then even for the CBD that they have for these trials, you're talking at best 1% CBD. Most CBDs out there in the market have, again, anywhere from 8 to 15% level of CBD. So we're hoping that the quality will come up. They say that they're going to have more of what they call a marijuana menu that has better quality cannabis, and that they're now going to be producing 2,000 kilos or about 4,400 pounds annually in order to supply more people in the in the studies and the science and medical side cannabis to look into.
Hey, who's this billionaire entrepreneur who launched a cryptocurrency bank for cannabis and hemp exchange?
Oh, my gosh. So we talked about him several months back. So this is that same billionaire who technically is the heir to the Greek Coca-Cola bottling company.
Yes, okay.
So if you remember us talking about Mr. David. So
yes.
He was the one that got busted for having a private jet full of plants when he went to an island and negotiated a deal. Oh my gosh, down in St. Kitts. That was quite a bit. So he's been on the radar before. He definitely he's getting his stuff together though. He announced that he's landed in Puerto Rico alongside a licensed marijuana grower and has about $3 million worth of hemp seed in an effort to provide relief to farmers affected by Hurricane Maria in 2017. So he's doing good things, but it's really nice to hear and see that he's putting his money where his mouth is and coming up with this program. So essentially it's a cryptocurrency banking system for the cannabis industry, specifically for the hemp exchange. So he was smart in going after technically the category that has been deschedulized by the U.S. government. That happened with the Farm Bill of 2018, like we talked about. So essentially what he's doing, he's just launching this in conjunction with his Swiss-based consortium. So this actual bank is going to be based out of the Swiss Alps up in a town called Gstaad. It will also operate SWX Coin. So this is kind of like Bitcoin's blockchain with single unit pricing tied to it, which is pegged directly to the median global price of premium hemp flower, which hemp is very much a global product. We've talked about, up to 70% of hemp being produced in the entire world out of China. And there's obviously hemp produced all over Europe and all over the U.S. So props to him for giving these farmers a wallet really to work with in that international space with respect to hemp.
Yeah, interesting though, because of when people think of cryptocurrency, they think of volatility, they think of ups and downs, they think of nothing being too stable. When they think of hemp, marijuana, CBD, et cetera, they just think, well, man, when can I get my hands on some? You can't put your hands on the other. So it's sort of it's kind of it's to me it's really interesting because one of the things I learned a couple of years ago was like in the Stone Age, marijuana plants were around. Like dinosaurs were said to nod on some marijuana plants in the day if people want to go and really do their history. And cryptocurrency being kind of one of the most modern revolutions of this time. You got like the old and the new together. Like what extremes? It's just really and even on an investment side at one point, if you're throwing money in cannabis, you're making money. If you're throwing money in crypto, you're making money. But two very different things all seem to always come together.
Very true. And I think a lot of us in the industry were a little apprehensive to turn to cryptocurrency as a solution just because, to your point, the volatility, and we already had enough attention on the industry. So we weren't sure if we wanted those two to mix. But again, for someone to do it and for someone to take a cautious approach by looking at hemp versus cannabis, the THC side, as we say, and the CBD side. I think it's smart, and I think less people will be afraid because hemp is almost kind of more of a commodity. It's very direct on what its pricing is from base to high quality, and it's sold as such. So I think it'll be a good thing. I'm looking forward to seeing what the future holds with that.
Well, I mean, you got no regular banking right now. It's essentially a cash industry in the States.
Very true. Very true. And that's been a huge challenge and a big risk, quite honestly, for many people that enter the industry, because all it takes is following that vehicle back to the production facility or following that vehicle, back to the distribution facility. Any smart crook knows that van or that vehicle is going to be full of cash because we're stuck in that position. So, again, this is going to be a saving grace, as has been the credit unions. More and more CUs have come on because the same laws don't apply to them as banks that are under the FDIC program or the federal banking program. So they're allowed a bit of leeway, and that's been a huge relief as well. But we need to normalize it and destigmatize it as quick as possible. That's what it comes down to.
It's interesting. Another one of my clients and one of the sponsors of the show, we do it now from the 360 Secure Studios, publicly traded company. SAFE is their ticker symbol. I actually think it's a great buy right now. Personally, you know me, I can't give financial advice, but I like to day trade and look at things. But their whole business model, these are a lot of former officers and former like sort of Marine types and security guards, and they put together a business that's doing a ton of protection of cannabis transfers and transporting cannabis, and also the money exchange part in the United States. Everything you just said, that this is like a full-fledged armored vehicle protection service that is booming because of this economy, and a lot of it is because it is a cash business in the States. It's wild.
Yeah, it really is. We've always referenced the Wild West and the Green Rush. I mean, there's a lot of terms.
What makes you think it's illegal? Sorry to interrupt. It makes you think it's illegal when you're just dealing with cash. It's so weird,
It's very true. We've talked about that. I mean, how many places do you go to? And I'm not talking about food trucks and pop-ups at camps and such or fairgrounds. But how many places do you go to now where they're like, sorry, cash only? Because the first thing that still pops in their head is, they're laundering money out the back.
Yeah. What is this, a garage sale or the mafia? Hey, Lance, we got to run here, but I love these updates, man. Rapport is great, and everything you do for the show and for BovedaInc.com is fantastic. Where's an opportunity for people to see you when you're out and about and any trade shows coming up?
Yeah, definitely. Next couple of trade shows be international. I'll be out in the countryside of England for Autopot and Product Earth Expo. And then I will be, it sounds like possibly, I'm going to be at ICBC in Vancouver, BC, and I'll be out at the Grow Off convention in Niagara Falls in Ontario. So that's to come in the next couple of months as well.
Hey, I got about 30 seconds. When's the one in Vancouver? Is that this month?
So that's early next month, early September.
I want to broadcast my show in Vancouver. I got a lot of friends out that way, and I'm trying to get out there, although that might be tough. I got we're having a little girl born in early September, so I probably shouldn't say, hey, honey, I'm planning a trip out to Vancouver right now.
The last hurrah.
No, well, thanks, Lance, and we'll talk to you next week for sure. Lance Lambert from BovedaInc.com. Have a good day, man.
Thank you.
This is the Todd Shapiro Show on Canada Talks, SiriusXM 167.